was thinking through some past Christmases in my life, more specifically when I was your age or even younger, like as a kid. My parents would put presents out under the tree all throughout December. Do your parents do this? Yeah. And I would go down just about every morning before my parents would get down there, and I'd look at all the presents, and I'd see which one had my name on it. My parents got smart in later years, and they stopped putting names on them. They started doing different designs per kid, but just didn't put names on any of them. And we had no idea which ones were ours. But they used to put names on them, and I would go down there, I'd look at them, I'd investigate them, and I'd look at one box, and I'd go, all right, that's the one big thing I want, all right? That's my Nintendo GameCube right there. I know it. I know it's in there. And I'd pick it up, I'd shake it, and I'd be so excited for it. And then I wake up Christmas morning, I go down, I get that box immediately and put it in my lap. And I'm like, I already know what this is. My parents are like, do you really? And I open it up, and it was definitely not a Nintendo GameCube. I think it was like a pair of shoes or something. I think I actually got the GameCube at my grandparents' like that same day later. But I remember opening the present and thinking this phrase, and this is kind of my title of the sermon tonight. I said, this is not what I expected. This is not what I expected. Maybe you guys have had a similar story before, where you're so excited to open this present, you get it, you open it up, and it's, yay, socks, right? We've all had that moment. But we learn early on that our expectations and reality don't always line up, do they? They rarely do. And tonight, as we look into the Christmas account, more specifically Jesus' birth, we see that this is a perfect example of that. Because when Jesus entered this world, he entered in a way that nobody expected. All right? In Luke 1, this gospel paints the scene beautifully. One thing about Luke, I find it crazy that we actually have an account of this, because does anybody know what Luke did for a living? He was a doctor, yeah? So a doctor wrote this, and someone could read it to write down Luke's account? Like, it makes no sense to me, right? Like, I'm skeptical. How could you even read it? I'm kidding. But in this account, we see a clear account of the birth of Jesus, and it's wonderful to read every single year. But as we read this, we see that a lot of things in this account, the people back then probably didn't expect it to happen in this way, because they expected the Messiah to come in some way or form, but not in this way. In Luke 1, starting in verse 31, there's an angel that comes to Mary and says, "You will conceive, and you shall call his name Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High, and his kingdom will never end." Now, on its face right there, everything sounds like glorious about that, right? Everything sounds awesome and epic, yeah? But then you look at the actual account of his birth. Where was he born? Not in a palace. Not in the capital city behind fortified walls and a guard. Where was he born? Yeah, Luke 2, verse 7. She laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, we listen to that word manger and we think, away in a manger. And we think of this cute little bed that they made for him in a barn, and it's so pretty and nice and well put together. But a manger in these days was basically a feeding trough for the animals of that barn, right? He was put in a feeding trough. There's nothing glorious about that. There's nothing royal or epic or awesome about that. Where was he born? Not a palace, but in a manger. Who were the first witnesses of his birth? Was it the elite of the time? Was it the religious leaders? The most influential people in the area? No. The very next verse, Luke 2, verse 8, says, in the same region, there were shepherds out in the field. Shepherds, mainly uneducated. A lot of them were some of the dirtiest looking people in the area because they had one of the dirtiest jobs. These weren't people of high status. Yet these are the people that were the first witnesses of Christ being born. And how does God announce the arrival to these shepherds? Not with trumpets in Jerusalem, not with a parade that goes around the entire town, but with angels in the sky over a pasture. Everything about this scene screams, this is not what we expected. For centuries, the Jewish people had these promises that were called prophecies. Y'all heard this word before? They had prophecies in the Old Testament. They're filling the Old Testament, proclaiming what and who the Messiah would be, what he would do, how he would live, and even how he would die. He fulfilled all of them, but not in the way people thought. They saw all these prophecies and they heard words like he's going to be a descendant of David. Oh, yeah, the greatest king we've ever had. Awesome. He's going to be a king that will reign forever. He's going to be a deliverer. He's going to be a conqueror. He's going to restore Israel's glory. So naturally, when they hear all that, they expect what? They expect someone powerful, right? They expect someone probably even political. They thought he was going to be an actual earthly king that would overthrow the Roman government. That's what they thought. They thought he was going to be someone royal, someone who looked like a warrior. But instead, what did they get? A baby to a poor family in an obscure town. Another verse in the gospel says, does anything good come from Nazareth? He was born in an obscure town, visited by shepherds, laid in a feeding trough. And in that town he grew up in, people back then considered it the wrong side of the tracks. Jesus was the fulfillment of the prophecies, but the fulfillment came in a form no one expected. He was a king, but not the kind they imagined. He would conquer, but not Rome, not just Rome. He would save his people, but in a deeper way than they ever dreamed. And we can kind of mess this up too, can we not? We think of Jesus coming to save us, and we think like he's coming to save me from this addiction or this specific problem in my life or this separation that I have with this estranged family member. And we think of all these things that he comes to save us from. And while he does do that, he actually comes to save us from something much bigger than that, right? He comes to save us from separation from God forever. He said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. They wanted deliverance from Caesar. Jesus delivered them from sin. They wanted a temporary kingdom on earth. God gave them an eternal one in heaven. How about this one? The people wanted a throne. God started with the manger. The gift was perfect, divine, even world-changing, right? But it didn't come in the wrapping that they expected. I can think of many times in my life where this is true, where God used moments in my life that looked like disappointment in order to move me into the areas of my calling. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a football star, okay? I knew it. I was like, I'm gonna go be in the NFL. I'm gonna do it. All right. Well, I knew that was my dream. Unfortunately, I had to wake up at some point, and that was in 7th grade when I found out I sucked. Did you know that you can get cut from the middle school football team? I found that out. It happened to me, and my dream was dead. And my parents saw me crying in my room. The rest of the night didn't even come out for dinner. And what'd they say? They said, hey, tomorrow you're going to go to marching band practice with your brother. And I was like, I don't even know what any of that is. Like, what are you talking about? I don't want to do that. I want to play football. I'm going to get better. I'm going to make it next year. They're like, no, you're going to marching band. And I was like, okay, whatever. And what happened? I was in band for 6 years after that, went to college for music, did marching band all through that, taught in the state for 10 years after that, got a ring, this is what it is. And it's a huge part of my life right now. But think, if I had gotten If I had gotten a blessing from God in the way I wanted a blessing from God, I wouldn't be where I am today, would I? I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be playing keys on the stage because I wouldn't have this love for music that I have now. Yeah? Same thing later in life when I was a senior, when I was thinking about where do I want to go for college. Yeah, we got seniors right here on the front row. Any other seniors? I don't think so. We're all thinking about what we're going to do next year. And I had one thing in my mind. I'm going to go to USC, I'll major in music, and it'll be that. And then my parents told me, you're going to go to the college that gives you the most money. And I said, no, I'm going to USC. Well, then all the scholarships came back, and I had infinitely more money to go to North Greenville than to USC. And my parents were like, you're going to be paying the loans for this. So you probably want to go to the college that's going to give you the most money. So I went to North Greenville instead. And I wasn't happy about it at the beginning. But if I don't go to North Greenville, I'm probably not called to ministry. And guess what else doesn't happen? I don't meet my wife. Yeah? And that beautiful girl right there is never born. And the beautiful girl that's growing in her belly right now is not growing in her belly. These moments, they were disappointments for me. I didn't expect them, but God used them to shape the biggest and most important parts of my life. You see this? This is how God likes to work in our lives. We pray for God to fix something in a very specific way, and He answers it in a different way. We might ask for strength, and God sends us in situations that will require strength. I say, God, give me patience, and He puts me in traffic. I ask for clarity, and He teaches me to trust Him instead of controlling everything myself. I ask for an open door, and God uses a closed door to redirect my path. I want comfort. God gives me calling. I want ease. God gives me purpose. And just like the people of Israel, sometimes we can miss what God is doing because we're too focused on how we expected Him to move. That's a tough truth right there. Sometimes we can miss what God is doing because we're too focused on how we expected or how we wanted Him to move. But Christmas is the reminder here that God often does His greatest work in the most unexpected ways. In this story, Luke 1, Luke 2, the world barely noticed what God was doing. But guess what? Heaven could hardly contain itself. Angels filled the sky. Shepherds ran to Bethlehem. Mary treasured every word in her heart. The world thought nothing had happened, but heaven knew that everything had changed. So what does this mean for us? I got 3 quick things for us of what this means for us. Number 1, don't judge God's plan by its packaging. Don't judge God's plan by its packaging. The manger did not look like a throne, did it? Not at all. It didn't look like it held a king, it held a baby. The manger didn't look like a throne, but it held the King of Kings. There are many, this is my favorite quote in Christmas time, like of all time, and I'm sorry I didn't put it in my slides. But there are many babies that became kings. Only one king became a baby. It's not what we expect, is it? But this is what God used to bring salvation to this world. In the same way, the situation in your life that looks confusing, insignificant, maybe painful or even disappointing, it may be the birthplace of God's greatest work in you. If I look at the most, I already said it, if I look at the most important parts and the most important people in my life, I wouldn't know those people and I wouldn't be in those places had I not experienced a moment of disappointment that redirected me from what I wanted in life to where God was taking me in life. So many times where the door shut on my plan, so I had to follow God's. And I realized that His way, His thoughts, His plan is infinitely better than mine. Don't judge God's plan by its packaging. Number 2, God's unexpected ways are not accidental, they're intentional. this is what you have to realize, is that he knows what he's doing. We got some control freaks in the room, and we feel like we have to be at the wheel of everything in our life. And it's hard for us to let this truth sink in, that I have to trust someone else with my life. I have to trust someone else with my future. And yeah, I would be worried if I had to put my trust for the rest of my life in you guys. In the same way, you'd be disappointed if you had to put your plan and your trust in me for the rest of your life. But the one I'm trusting is greater than anyone in this world. The one that I'm trusting is the one who told the waves, you're going to stop here and not go an inch farther. The one that I'm trusting is the one that sent his son to die for my sins. That's the one I'm trusting tonight. He knows what he's doing. He sees what you cannot see. And he writes stories that you could never even dream up in your head. What I thought was a disappointment, having to go to a different college, ended up being the best life possible that I currently have. And it all started with what I thought was disappointment. Don't judge God's plan by its packaging. His ways are not accidental, they're intentional. And number 3, trust the God who surprises. Trust the God who surprises. I'm telling you, if God can bring salvation through a baby in a manger, he can bring beauty out of your mess. He can bring purpose out of your confusion. He can bring hope out of your disappointment. So the next time you feel like a door has closed in your life, or God's not moving in the way you want, maybe that's the Spirit knocking on your door to a surprise, to redirect your eyes somewhere else. So if the band will go ahead and come on up. This season, this Christmas season, is the greatest season of all, where we stop for a minute and just reflect on the fact that God, when he saw our current situation, dead in sin, separated from him, Christmas is a reminder that he didn't just leave us the way he found us. That he had a plan to save you and me. And he has a plan for your life. In the plan to bring you back to him, he sent his son to be born of a virgin in a manger. And to be that sacrifice for your sin. And so the next time you say, this isn't what I expected, because you're going to say that through life a lot. This isn't what I expected. You get to your first day of college, this is not what I expected. Yeah? Yeah, this isn't. You're going to get to the first day on the job. This is not what I expected. Yeah? Yeah, AJ? No. This is not what I expected. Next time you say that this is not what I expected, remember, neither was Christmas. Neither was the Messiah. Neither was the cross, and neither was the resurrection. But everything God does, even when it's unexpected, is good. It's perfect. And it's filled with purpose for your life. So this Christmas, I want you to open your eyes to the unexpected ways God might be moving in your life. And I want you to open your heart to trust him, even when the gift doesn't look like what you imagine. God's going to close doors in your life. And take it from me, there's no use in trying to open a door that God's closed. There's no point. What you have to do in those moments of disappointment or dead ends is you have to open your eyes and see Where's the direction God wants me to go now? Where's the open door? He closed that one. Where's the one he wants me to go through? That's going to lead you to Scripture. That's going to lead you to prayer. That's going to lead you to lean on the people around you. And it's going to make you more aware of the Spirit in your life. I promise you.